In this lesson, we'll begin building our map by planning for and drawing in the streets. Alright, in the previous lesson we learned how to use our scale, shear, and rotate method to create the different faces of our three-dimensional objects. Now, I also mentioned that that method was going to become really useful as we begin working with more and more advanced shapes. Now, we would actually create those in a flat two-dimensional form and then use our actions to convert those into three-dimensional space. So, let's go ahead and back up here. I mentioned also we would be creating a map in the last lesson, and I'm going to go ahead and start beginning the groundwork for that map now. So what I've got here in front of us here is a Photoshop file that is actually a screenshot off of Google Maps. It's a satellite image of just some city streets here, and let's just say that this is the portion of this particular map that we want to actually create in vector here. Now, my vision is to create sort of a three-dimensional map using isometric projection. So let's go ahead and start in a two-dimensional form here. Again, we're using a reference image. Now, I've got that on its own layer here. So let me come over here and I'm just going to double click on that layer. And let's just choose this template option right here. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to lock our layer and dim the image to 50%. So it's not going to be too intrusive on what we're doing. So you can see here that it's done that. Let's go and rename this layer. Let's call it reference. And let's go ahead and create a new layer on top of that here. And okay, so let's go ahead and just minimize our actions panel so we have a little bit more screen real estate here. Let's just zoom in on our map. Now, we may actually need to come in and rotate that image just a little bit. Let me go and show my rulers by hitting Control R on my keyboard. I'm just going to drag a guide down here and sort of measure this street. Make sure that that doesn't need to be rotated just a little bit. Let me just unlock my guides by coming to View Guides and unchecking that Lock Guides option here so I can move that guide around. And yeah, it looks like my map may need to be rotated just a little bit. So let me come in, unlock my reference layer, and I'm going to just rotate this map just a little bit here. Maybe just move it up just a hair. Just nudge that down into position there. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and lock that layer again, and let's go ahead and grab our pen tool at this point. So I'm going to use the P keyboard shortcut, and we've got several major streets here. Let me just get this guide out of the way. I want to delete that by selecting it and hitting my backspace key. So we've got several major streets here. We've got some north and south streets, we've got some east and west streets, and then we've got a street that runs sort of at an angle right through this one city block, or this 1 square mile right here. So, let's just go ahead and grab our pen tool and select our new layer. And let's just go ahead and start drawing some of these in. Now, it looks like, according to this map, looks like there's a turnabout right here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's just use our ellipse tool to go ahead and draw that in first. So I'm just going to go ahead and click in the center of this circle right here. Let's go ahead and just click and hold down our Alt key and our Shift key. And we'll draw that circle out from the center. And that'll let us draw that in right about the right shape. And you know what, we don't have any stroke or fill color assigned to that, so let's just give that a black stroke color for right now so we can see that. And let's go ahead and make a copy of that. I think there's another turnabout right up here. It's kind of hard to see, but let's go ahead and just drop that right there on that intersection right there. So we've got our two turnabouts in place. So with those in place, I'll go ahead and grab my pen tool, and let's just go ahead and draw in some paths here. I'm going to just click here, hold down my Shift key, and I'm going to click down here. Now, really when you're creating a map like this, it's ultimately up to you as to how accurate you want to be with your map. Now, it's kind of hard to tell by this image where some of these streets split into a divided road, divided by a median. So I'm just going to sort of take some creative liberties for this project and just sort of create some of those in places, and some of them I'm probably going to ignore. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my smart guides to snap that anchor point right there to my roundabout. And that road looks like it's nice and in place there. So let's just go ahead and grab our pen tool again. Let's go ahead and draw in another line segment right in here. That one looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and copy that, hold down my Alt key, and use my selection tool to make a copy of that. We'll just snap that into place right here, and I'm going to stretch this one out so it goes over here off the map. That looks pretty good there. So we've got a couple roads laid here. We've really got several more left to go though. So I'm just going to kind of quickly come in here and drop in some additional roads. We'll put one right there. Let's go ahead and drop one in right about here. I actually want to deselect that path that we had just drawn so we don't continue that. Drop one in right there. Looks like we got a large north and south street right here that runs up through this roundabout. And yeah, let's see. Let's go ahead and just bring this one in right here. And straight up. Looks like that one could probably come over just a little bit. Now, some of these streets aren't perfectly straight, but for the purpose of this map, we're just going to go ahead and straighten those out just a little bit here. And if we need to, we'll just move these anchor points around and sort of simplify the map, if you will. So it's still going to be readable. It's still going to have the street names on it, but we're not going to represent every single twist and turn in each one of these roads. Alright, now let's go ahead and move that one over just a little bit. I may come in and fine tweak some of these roads just a little bit in between lessons just to kind of get them straightened up, make sure they're not on top of any of the buildings. And we've got one other road right there that's running at sort of an angle through the roundabout. So I'm going to come in and draw that one in next. Let's just kind of zoom in and get this first portion of it here. I'm going to go ahead and hold down my shift key, constrain that to a 45-degree angle, and that looks like I hit it pretty well. So let's go ahead and just copy that one by holding down the Alt key with it selected, and I'm going to hold down Shift and drag down a copy at a 45-degree angle so we can continue this road right down the center of that median, what looks like a median right there. So just go ahead and grab my direct selection arrow. I'm using several keyboard shortcuts to cycle in between these tools. So the direct selection arrow is what allows you to grab the anchor points one at a time, and that's what I just used right there. Keyboard shortcut for that is A, and the direct selection arrow, or the black arrow, which selects objects and groups, the selection or the keyboard shortcut for that is V. These are very basic Illustrator shortcuts that if you've been working in Illustrator for any time at all, then you probably already have those committed to memory. But just in case you don't, that's I'll try and make sure and remember to name off any keyboard shortcuts I'm using for you. Alright, so that one's a little bit long. Let's go ahead and just retract that a little bit. And you know what? Let's go ahead and continue this one. It looks like there's a kind of a curve right here, and this angled street turns into an east and west street. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, go ahead and just click on that anchor point right there. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and just hold down Shift and bring that out straight to the right. And go ahead and grab that anchor point. I'm going to extend that down just a little bit here. There we go. Now let's come in and modify that path just a little bit. Let's come in and add a couple anchor points on either side of this because this does have sort of a natural curve to it. So I'm going to come in and stick one right about there. And let's go ahead and put one right about here. And let's go ahead and mouse over this extra anchor point here, and let's get rid of that. So we've actually shaved that corner off. It's still sort of angular, and we actually need that to be curved. So I'm going to come up here and grab my Convert Anchor Point tool. It's right here. A keyboard shortcut for that is Shift-C. That's going to allow me to pull out the Bezier handles for this for these anchor points on this path here. So I'm going to just pull those out here and sort of smooth this curve out just a little bit. I can hold down Shift again to constrain that to 45-degree angles. So we're just going to kind of smooth that out, just like so. And I've got most of the major roads, it looks like, represented here. There's a few other minor roads in here that some of them don't even have street names, it looks like, but you know, I may come back and hit those between lessons. What I would like to do now is come in and just start increasing the stroke width on some of these roads so we can sort of differentiate between them. So I'm going to go ahead and select this road right here. It looks to be our thickest road, so let's come in here and just increase the stroke weight on that road here. I'm going to bump that up significantly here. Let's just hide that layer and see how close we are. That looks pretty close to the actual width of that road, so I'm going to come in, maybe bump that up one more. Let's hit about 17 points. Actually, we need to select those paths again, so we'll hold down Shift and select each one of those and bump those up to about 17 points. Let's come in and select these this major east and west road right here. Let's go ahead and increase that one. Let's see if we did 17 for this one. Let's come in at about 13 and see what that looks like. I think we could probably even go a little narrower than that. So let's come down. Let's jump that down to about 11, maybe 10. I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and grab this one right here and this one. And I think we could come up quite a bit. Let's go ahead and start about 10. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. So we'll come in here and adjust our roundabouts as well. Let's go ahead and bump those up to about 10. You know, like I said, I may come in between lessons and actually adjust the stroke width we've applied to some of these, but I'll make sure and include that project file for you so you can see where I ended up. Now, a lot of this is just a matter of tweaking, just in getting these exactly the way that you want them to be. So I'm just going to come in here and apply 10 points to this one. Let's go ahead and apply 10 points to this one as well. And we've got most of the major roads here mapped out. Looks like we missed one right here. So in this lesson, we've learned how to bring in another file and begin planning for the layout of our roads for our map. In the next lesson, we're going to continue on, and I'm going to go ahead and start bringing in some shapes for buildings.